Welcome to the Uncanny Valley podcast. This is where we explore that really weird feeling, that deep kind of chilling discomfort you get when something is almost right, but just not quite.
Exactly, that sensation where familiarity twists into something unsettling.
And today, we're not looking at robots or CGI, surprisingly enough. We're going deep into the pages of a classic, Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
A perfect choice. It absolutely nails that uncanny feeling.
So the big question for us today is,
Yeah.
what exactly makes something so unsettling, maybe even terrifying, when it's almost human, but just off? And how does this old story, this novella, manage to lay out the blueprint for that kind of psychological dread?
It's fascinating because, yeah, it's horror, it's mystery, but it's also, I think, a foundational text for understanding this whole uncanny phenomenon. We're going to peel back the layers, really focus on Stevenson's own words, his descriptions, the psychological impact he creates.
Right. Forget the movie versions for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. We want to get into what the text itself is doing, how it messes with our heads, our sense of what's real and what isn't.
Okay, so our guide through this foggy Victorian London is Mr. Utterson. He's this lawyer, very reserved, very rational. He's kind of our stand-in, right?
He is. We see it all through his eyes.
And as he investigates this mystery, his whole comfortable, predictable world starts to fall apart, exposing something, well, something unnatural, something that really gets at the core of what being human even means.
And that's where the uncanny really bites. It's that unheimlich thing Freud talked about, the unhomely. Something familiar suddenly becoming alien, terrifying. It hits us because Hyde isn't just a monster. He's a monster that feels disturbingly close to home.
Almost like a distorted reflection. Okay, let's dig into how Stevenson pulls this off. It starts with Utterson himself, our narrator, in a way.
Well, not quite narrator, but our main point of view character, definitely.
Right, our POV character. Stevenson describes him as having this rugged countenance that was never lighted by a smile. He's cold, scanty, and embarrassed in discourse. Sounds like fun.
He sounds a bit dry, doesn't he? But there's something lovable about him, too, apparently. He's loyal. His friendships aren't based on charm. They're the growth of time. He sticks with people.
And he has this approved tolerance for others, which seems key. What does that really mean here?
It's super important. This guy is incredibly self-disciplined. He drinks gin to mortify his taste for good wine, hasn't seen a play in 20 years despite loving theater. He controls himself meticulously.
Okay. He's strict with himself.
Very. But then he has this surprisingly tolerant view of other people's, let's say, misdeeds. Stevenson says he sometimes wonders almost with envy at the energy people put into their sins.
That's a weird contradiction.
It is. Rigid self-control versus this broad acceptance, almost empathy, for others' failings. And that contradiction makes him the perfect person to witness what's coming. He's grounded, rational, but also perhaps strangely open to the darker side of life, even if only as an observer.
So he's not immediately judgmental in the way maybe someone else would be.
Exactly. Which sets him up perfectly for encountering something that defies easy moral judgment, something truly ambiguous and, well, uncanny.
And we see this quiet, ordered life in those Sunday walks he takes with his cousin Enfield.
Oh, yeah, those walks, they sound incredibly dull, don't they? Just walking in silence.
You really do. Singularly dull, Stevenson calls them. But they clearly value it. They get obvious relief when a friend shows up, but they wouldn't miss the walk for business. It's their ritual.
It's the picture of Utterson's predictable world. Stable, quiet, unchanging.
Until it isn't. Because on one of these walks, they end up on this side street, a busy quarter of London. It sounds nice. Shops, driving.
And then, bam! This sinister block of building just interrupts everything. It's completely out of place. 2 stories, no windows downstairs, just this one door. The whole facade is neglected, discolored, sordid.
Stark contrast to everything around it.
Totally. The door itself has no bell, no knocker. It's blistered and disdained. It just screams neglect and secrecy. It's an architectural anomaly, the first real visual cue that something is fundamentally wrong here. The unhomely breaking into the familiar streetscape.
It is a chilling image. And it's right there that Enfield tells his odd story. The story that really starts to unravel things for Utterson.
And for us, Enfield saw this little man, who he eventually names as Hyde, trample calmly over the child's body and left her screaming.
Calmly. That's horrific.
It's hellish to see, Enfield says, and crucially, it wasn't like a man. It was like some damn juggernaut. Not human, something mechanical, unstoppable, yet somehow calm. That juxtaposition is deeply unsettling.
And the reaction of the crowd? It wasn't just anger, was it?
No, it was deeper. Pure, visceral disgust. Enfield says, I had taken a loathing to my gentleman at first sight. Even the doctor, the cut-and-dry apothecary, turned sick and white with the desire to kill him. It's this immediate, shared physical revulsion.
Okay, so here he comes. How is Hyde actually described? Because that seems central to the uncanny feeling.
It is, but the genius is in how he isn't described. Enfield struggles. He is not easy to describe. Then, there's something wrong with his appearance, something displeasing, something downright detestable.
We can't pinpoint it.
Exactly. I never saw a man I so disliked, and yet I scarce know why. He must be deformed somewhere. He gives a strong feeling of deformity, although I couldn't specify the point. That's it. That's the uncanny valley in words.
It's not what is wrong, but the feeling that something is profoundly wrong, but you can't name it.
Precisely. Your brain tries to categorize him as human, but it keeps hitting an error message. It's that cognitive friction, that failure to neatly classify him, that generates the horror. It's not a specific scar or limp, it's an overall wrongness, an unexpressed deformity.
Like a glitch in the human code.
You could say that. And it triggers this deep-seated aversion, this feeling that you're looking at something that shouldn't exist in that form.
And Hyde's behavior reinforces this.
Yeah.
This otherness, his black, sneering coolness.
Yeah. Even when facing this furious crowd, he's cold, detached. Really like Satan, Enfield says. And then the kicker. He has a key to that weird, neglected door.
And pays the family off with a check signed.
With a name Utterson recognizes instantly. A respectable name. Dr. Jettle's name.
That's the gut punch for Utterson. The name, the door, it all connects, and suddenly that weird will he holds for Jekyll.
Oh, yeah. That will becomes terrifying. It lives everything to Edward Hyde if Jekyll dies or just disappears. Disappearance or unexplained absence for any period exceeding 3 calendar months.
Which Utterson already thought was madness.
Right. An eyesore. But now, knowing even a little about Hyde becomes a disgrace. This detestable figure, this juggernaut, holds power over his friend. The vague unease about the will crystallizes into a sudden, definite presentment of a fiend.
It's moved from a legal puzzle to a real, horrifying threat.
Absolutely, and it haunts him. Utterson can't sleep that night. His mind is just racing, besieged by questions. He keeps seeing Enfield's story play out.
The human juggernaut.
Yes, but worse. He starts imagining this figure, this Hyde, having power over Jekyll while he sleeps, forcing him to obey. Hyde invades Utterson's dreams, this formless terror. It shows how the uncanny works. It gets under your skin, into your subconscious.
So he has to do something. He needs answers.
He needs a rational explanation, so he goes straight to Dr. Lanyon, Jekyll's old friend, fellow scientist. If anyone knows, he thinks it will be Lanyon.
He's hoping Lanyon can shed some light, maybe explain this Hyde character, but Lanyon, well, he doesn't really help, does he? Initially, anyway.
Not really. Lanyon is hearty, dapper, very much the traditional scientist. He confirms he and Jekyll have fallen out, says Jekyll became too fanciful for him, went wrong in mind, calls Jekyll's recent work unscientific balderdash.
So a major scientific disagreement. They haven't spoken properly in years.
Over 10 years, Lanyon says. And crucially, when Utterson asks about Hyde...
Lanyon has never heard of him.
No, never heard of him. Since my time. And for a second, Utterson feels this wave of relief. It is nothing worse than that. Just a scientific argument gone sour, not some sinister secret involving this Hyde creature.
But it's false relief, isn't it? For us reading it, knowing something is deeply wrong, Lanyon's ignorance just heightens the tension.
Totally. It's dramatic irony. Lanyon's rational world is still intact, but we know it's about to collide with something utterly irrational. For Utterson, though, it just deepens the mystery. If Lanyon doesn't know Hyde, who is he?
And Utterson can't let it go. He gets obsessed, starts hanging around that door.
He feels this inordinate curiosity to behold the features of the real Mr. Hyde. He needs to see him to confront this thing that's haunting his thoughts. If he be Mr. Hyde, he resolves, I shall be Mr. Seek. Almost like he needs to define the undefinable.
And eventually he does. He waits and waits, night after night, then one night.
He hears this odd light footstep. Quick, quiet. Sees a small and very plainly dressed man heading for the door. And Utterson feels it immediately a strong aversion, just from the look of him.
So he confronts him, steps out.
Hyde actually shrinks back, with a hissing intake of the breath, like a snake recoiling. But then he collects himself, coolly asks Utterson how he knew him.
And Utterson forces him to show his face. What does he see? What's the description this time?
Again, it's about the feeling as much as the features. Hyde is pale and dwarfish. He has a displeasing smile. His voice is husky, whispering, and somewhat broken. But it's Utterson's reaction that matters. Hitherto unknown disgust, loathing, and fear.
He's repulsed.
Deeply. And he tries to analyze it, tries to pin it down. The man seems hardly human. Something troglodytic, shall we say. Like a caveman. Something primitive, devolved. It's not just ugly. It's fundamentally less than human, or maybe differently human in a way that feels wrong.
He even feels Satan's signature upon a face. It's pure evil made manifest.
That's how it strikes him. An imprint of evil that defies normal human understanding. And Hyde's reaction. He gives this savage laugh, unlocks the door with extraordinary quickness, and vanishes inside.
Leaving Utterson just reeling.
Completely perplexed, wondering if this visceral ugliness is the radiance of a foul soul physically manifesting itself. He goes round to Jekyll's main entrance, and Poole, the butler, confirms Hyde has a key, full access to the laboratory, and the staff have orders to obey him.
Which just makes the connection even more baffling and sinister.
Utterson tries to rationalize it. Maybe Hyde is blackmailing Jekyll. Maybe it's some ghost of some old sin. He's grasping for explanations within his normal framework, but the sheer weirdness, the uncanny nature of Hyde, resists easy answers.
So naturally, Utterson feels he has to talk to Jekyll directly. He gets his chance at a dinner party.
Yeah, pleasant gathering, but Utterson stays behind to talk. He brings up the will, brings up Hyde.
And Jekyll's reaction.
It's dramatic. He tries to brush it off, but then he turns pale to the very lips. There's a blackness about his eyes. His usual confident composure just shatters.
He admits it's a strange situation.
Painfully situated, he says. Very strange. A very strange one. The repetition tells you everything. He can't find the right words. He seems cornered, evasive.
But he makes a promise, doesn't he?
He does. He insists, the moment I choose, I can be rid of Mr. Hyde. It sounds like he's in control, but his manner, his visible distress, suggests otherwise. It feels fragile.
And then he asks Utterson for that favor. To look after Hyde, make sure he gets his rights if Jekyll disappears.
Which is just bizarre. Protect this creature Utterson now loathes. It highlights this inexplicable, deeply unsettling bond between them. Utterson agrees, reluctantly, but he's more disturbed than ever. It feels like Jekyll is bound to Hyde in some way Utterson simply cannot comprehend.
Things quiet down for a while after that, then almost a year later, boom, the Carew murder.
Yes, a horrifying escalation, witnessed by a maidservant looking at her window late one night.
She sees Sir Danvers Carew, an aged, beautiful gentleman, meet Hyde on the street.
Seems innocent enough at first, but then Hyde explodes, a great flame of anger. He starts stamping, brandishing the cane, acting like a madman.
And then the attack itself. It's brutal.
Unbelievably so. With ape-like fury, Stevenson writes, Hyde tramples Carew, beats him with the cane. The maid hears bones were audibly shattered, sees the body jump upon the roadway. It's sheer, frenzied violence. Primal.
Ape-like fury. That detail again, linking him to something less than human, something bestial.
Exactly. It escalates Hyde beyond just unsettlingly weird to actively, violently monstrous. His actions are so extreme, so senseless, they feel fundamentally inhuman. The maid faints from the horror, a physical reaction to witnessing such profound transgression.
And the evidence left behind points directly back to Jekyll.
The broken half of the walking cane. Utterson recognizes it instantly. He gave it to Jekyll years ago.
That's damning.
It is. And when they go to Hyde's rooms in Soho, which are surprisingly luxurious, hinting at Jekyll's money, they find the other half of the cane and signs of a hasty departure. Burned papers in the fireplace.
He tried to cover his tracks.
Yes, but the link is undeniable now. The respectable Dr. Jekyll is inextricably tied to this monstrous act through his protege or whatever Hyde is. And still, even after this horrific violence, when police try to get a description of Hyde.
It's the same problem, isn't it? People struggle to describe him.
Exactly. The maid saw him clearly, calls him small and wicked-looking. But others still talk about that haunting sense of unexpressed deformity. He remains this elusive, unsettling figure who defies easy categorization, even by those who've seen him commit murder. That persistent ambiguity is the uncanny quality.
After the murder, Hyde vanishes. Poof. And Jekyll. He seems to recover.
For a while, yes, it's like a weight has been lifted. He comes out of seclusion, he's social again, does charity work, seems at peace. Utterson feels hopeful. Maybe Jekyll has finally gotten rid of Hyde.
But it doesn't last.
No. Suddenly, Jekyll retreats again, shuts himself off completely, refuses visitors, even Utterson. It's abrupt, inexplicable, and deeply worrying.
And this coincides with what happens to Dr. Lanyon.
Lanyon. Utterson goes to see him, concerned about Jekyll, and is absolutely shocked. Lanyon looks like death. Death warrant written legibly upon his face. He's aged terribly. Pale, shaky.
It's not just physical, is it?
Not at all. It's a deep-seated terror of the mind. Lanyon is broken, and he refuses, absolutely refuses, to even discuss Jekyll. I wish to see or hear no more of Dr. Jekyll, he says, regarding him as essentially dead.
What could possibly have caused such a reaction?
Lanyon calls it a shock from which I shall never recover. It's clear he's witnessed something utterly soul-shattering, something that violated his rational, scientific understanding of the world so profoundly that it physically and mentally destroyed him. That's the impact of confronting the raw, undiluted, uncanny. It breaks your reality.
And he can't even talk about it. He leaves Utterson a letter, but it's sealed.
To be opened only after Jekyll's death or disappearance. It confirms the secret is huge, terrible, and probably linked to whatever shock killed Lanyon. It just deepens the dread.
Then Utterson has another strange encounter, this time with Enfield again.
Yeah.
They're walking, end up back at that door.
Drawn back to it almost inevitably. And they look up at the laboratory window, and there's Jekyll.
How does he look?
Terrible, like some disconsolate prisoner. Utterson calls up to him, suggests he join them for a walk. Jekyll's face lights up for a second, and then the smile vanishes, replaced by an expression of such abject terror and despair as froze the very blood of the two gentlemen below. It's a fleeting glimpse, just a second, of pure, naked horror on Jekyll's face.
Before the window slams shut.
Instantly, like something pulled him back. Utterson and Enfield just look at each other, pale, with an answering horror in their eyes. They walk away in silence.
That's huge, because it's not Hyde this time. It's Jekyll showing that terror. The uncanny isn't just the other, it's infecting Jekyll himself. They're seeing the internal struggle made manifest.
Exactly. It's a shared moment of witnessing something profoundly wrong, something breaking down within Jekyll. The horror is leaking out.
The final act really begins when Poole, Jekyll's butler, shows up at Utterson's door one night.
Utterson can tell immediately something is seriously wrong. Poole looks terrified.
He's convinced there's been foul play, that his master, Dr. Jekyll, has been murdered, and someone or something else is in the cabinet room.
Poole's been working for Jekyll for 20 years. He knows him, his voice, his walk, his presence, and he is utterly convinced that the being currently locked in the cabinet is not his master.
What makes him so sure? What has he observed?
He's heard crying from inside the room like a rat. He's seen the figure briefly, scurrying back inside, always masked, or looking down. He's been sent on desperate errands all over town for a particular chemical, always rejected as impure. But the voice is different.
And the size.
That's critical. Poole says the figure seems smaller, shorter. He insists passionately, that thing was not my master. My master is a tall, fine build of a man, and this was more of a dwarf. He even describes glimpsing him once among the chemicals, leaping like a monkey.
Like a monkey.
Yeah.
That animalistic, non-human comparison again.
It's constant, and the feeling Poole gets, hey, it went down my spine like ice. Pure, visceral revulsion and fear. Coming from someone who knew Jekyll so well, this conviction that the thing inside is not him is incredibly powerful. It's the uncanny horror of the familiar replaced by the monstrous alien.
This is what finally convinces Utterson they have to break down the door. Poole's terror, his certainty, it overrides Utterson's caution.
The rational can no longer contain the irrational. They have to confront it, so they break down the door to the cabinet.
And find Hyde's body, not Jekyll.
Hyde's body, yes.
Yeah.
Sorely contorted and still twitching. Dead, apparently by suicide. There's a crushed file in his hand. The smell of cyanide kernels.
But dressed in Jekyll's clothes.
Which are far too large for him. A final, grotesque image of this diminished, distorted being occupying Jekyll's space, but not filling it. It's deeply unsettling.
And Jekyll is gone. But he left. Documents.
Two crucial narratives. Lanyon's sealed letter, which Utterson can now open, and a thick packet in Jekyll's own handwriting, his full statement and confession. The answers are finally here.
Okay, so Lanyon's narrative first. What horror did he witness?
He recounts getting this desperate letter from Jekyll, begging him, as his oldest friend, to break into his cabinet, retrieve a specific drawer powders, a vial, a notebook, and take it back to Lanyon's own home. Then wait for a messenger at midnight.
Lanyon must have thought Jekyll was mad.
He did. He calls it scientific heresies, thinks Jekyll's insane, but the urgency, the desperation in the letter compels him. He feels he has to do it.
So he gets the drawer, waits, and at midnight.
Hyde arrives. Lanyon describes his own immediate instinctive revulsion, Hyde's shocking expression, his strange mix of muscular activity and apparent debility. He notes this odd subjective disturbance Hyde causes in him, a physical malaise.
The uncanny presence again, affecting people physically.
Definitely. Hyde is impatient, demanding the drawer. Lanyon watches him mix the contents, the powders, into the blood-red liquor. He describes the chemical reaction vividly. It fizzes, changes color from red to purple to green, alchemical, almost magical.
Building the tension. And then, Hyde. He offers Lanyon a choice.
He does, almost tauntingly. Drink the potion, Hyde says, and witness a new province of knowledge, a prodigy to stagger the unbelief of Satan. Or let him leave. Lanyon, overcome by curiosity and a sense of scientific duty, perhaps, tells him to proceed.
And then Lanyon sees it, the transformation.
Right before his eyes, Stevenson's description is terrifying. A cry followed. He reeled, staggered, seemed to swell. His face became suddenly black, and the features seemed to melt and alter. It's a violent, grotesque dissolution of form. There stood Henry Jekyll, pale, shaken, like a man restored from death. Lanyon witnessed the impossible, a fundamental law of nature broken.
The wonder destroyed him.
It shattered his entire worldview. His science, his reason couldn't account for it. That direct confrontation with the impossible, the utterly uncanny, is what leads to his terror, his sickness, his death. His life is shaken to its roots. He dies incredulous.
Utterly chilling. And that leaves Jekyll's own confession. The final piece. Why did he do it?
His statement reveals his lifelong struggle with a profound duplicity of life. He wasn't inherently evil, but he had these urges, these undignified pleasures he wanted to indulge secretly while maintaining his public reputation as a respectable gentleman.
You feel torn.
Exactly. He saw himself as fundamentally two beings, the upright, aspiring self and the darker, pleasure-seeking self constantly at war. His scientific ambition, driven by this internal conflict, was to find a way to physically separate them.
To give each nature its own body.
Precisely. He believed man is not truly one, but truly two. He thought separating them would end the struggle, allow the good side to ascend without hindrance, and the bad side to indulge without dragging the other down. A naive, incredibly dangerous idea.
He thought he could control it.
He did. He describes the first transformation, agonizing pain, grinding in the bones, deadly nausea, but then this indescribably new, incredibly sweet feeling, lighter, younger, happier, but also immediately tenfold more wicked.
And Hyde's appearance. Why was he smaller, dwarfish?
Jekyll theorizes it's because his evil side was less robust and less developed, less exercised than his good side throughout his life. Hyde was the essence of that repressed wickedness, physically smaller but morally potent.
And that imprint of deformity.
Jekyll acknowledges it. Evil was written broadly and plainly on the face of Hyde. He was pure evil, deriving joy from torture, inherently malign. Yet, and this is the core of the self-inflicted uncanny, when Jekyll first saw Hyde in the mirror.
So you welcomed it?
No repugnance, rather of a leap of welcome. He thought, this too was myself. It seemed natural and human. That initial acceptance of the monstrous self is terrifying. Only later, seeing the world's revulsion and experiencing Hyde's escalating evil, does he feel the horror. He created something of him, but profoundly not him, yet still, somehow, him, the ultimate uncanny creation.
And he lost control.
Completely. It became easier and easier to turn into Hyde, harder and harder to turn back. Hyde seemed to grow stronger as Jekyll weakened. Eventually, Jekyll started waking up as Hyde without even taking the potion. The transformation became involuntary.
Hyde was taking over.
Yes, and tormenting Jekyll in the process, scrawling blasphemies in his books, burning letters, destroying his father's portrait, these ape-like tricks, acts of pure spite from the creature he unleashed.
What a terrifying dynamic. Jekyll hating this inorganic thing he created, while Hyde, loving life, clings to Jekyll because Jekyll's death means his own.
It's a horrific symbiosis. Jekyll is trapped with his own monstrous creation, a living embodiment of the uncanny otherness he deliberately carved out of himself. The horror isn't just the monster, it's that the monster is him, distorted and uncontrollable.
The end comes because of a supply issue, essentially.
Bizarrely, yes. The original batch of the chemical salt he used ran out, and when he tried to buy more, it didn't work. The new supplies were pure. The original, he realizes too late, must have had some unknown impurity, some accidental catalyst that made the transformation possible.
So he's trapped. He can't make the potion anymore.
Exactly. He can only turn back into Jekyll using the last dregs of the old powder. And those transformations become shorter, less reliable. He knows he's running out of time, that soon a transformation into Hyde will be permanent. Poole's desperate search for the right salt was always doomed. Jekyll is literally dissolving into Hyde.
Which leads to his final confession, written as Jekyll, using the very last dose.
He knows it's the end. This is the last time that Henry Jekyll can think his own thoughts or see his own face. He's writing as his own consciousness fades forever.
His final thoughts are so detached, aren't they? Wondering how Hyde will end execution or suicide, but saying, what is to follow concerns another than myself?
It's the ultimate confirmation of the separation. Jekyll is gone. Only Hyde remains, trapped, who then takes his own life rather than face capture or the final transformation solidifying. Utterson finds only the residue of this failed experiment, Hyde's small body in Jekyll's oversized clothes.
So Utterson reads it all, Lanyon's story, Jekyll's confession. The whole horrifying picture comes clear.
The whole tragic, uncanny puzzle is solved. Jekyll's ambition, his hubris, his self-created monster, even the final will, leaving everything to Utterson, feels like Jekyll's last gasp for order, trying to clean up the mess he made.
It really is a powerful cautionary tale, isn't it? The uncanny valley isn't just about external things looking weirdly human. It's about what happens when we mess with the boundaries within ourselves.
Absolutely. Stevenson shows the psychological horror of creating your own other isolating parts of yourself. It warns that suppressing or unnaturally separating aspects of our nature doesn't eliminate them. It risks turning them into something monstrous, something uncanny that can consume us. The familiar self becomes the terrifying alien.
Which leaves us with a really unsettling thought, doesn't it? If the uncanny frightens us by blurring human, not human boundaries, what happens when we're the ones doing the blurring, inside ourselves, trying to isolate our own evil, our own undignified pleasures?
Yeah. Do we all have these hidden aspects that, if given free rein, might seem horrifyingly alien, yet still recognizably us? What internal uncanny valleys are we creating by denial or suppression?
Something to definitely think about. Thank you for joining us on the Uncanny Valley podcast.